Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. So before we go ahead and we start moving on with planning over here the half cylinder or circle or whatever you want to call it, what I want to do is I just want to use this one as like a little prototype to show you how we are going to do everything else. So first of all, I just want to quickly change the escalators, and then I will show you how we are basically going to divide up like the actual stores and how we are going to kind of like manage those things. The reason with the escalator is because it just doesn't look very beefy, and I think it is because over here it just doesn't really touch. So instead, if we go to our modeling tools, it might just be as simple to make it look a little bit better. Oh, I added segments. In that case, I need to select a little bit more over here and also over here to select these pieces, and hopefully we can just carefully like move those down a little bit like this. So now they definitely like look a lot thicker, and then if I press apply here, see? You can see how something that small actually makes quite a big difference. So we got something like that. Now let's go ahead and let's have a look at our stores. So I think, let's see. Yeah, we got that stuff. The railings we still need to do. Did I ever finish those? I did not finish the railings. Oh, whoops, that's awkward. Let me just quickly go ahead and fix that. Here we go. So railings are often, I'm going to make them the same size as over here, like our panel. And they are often at desk size, which is around, shall we say, like 65 centimeters, I believe. So we can just take it as like a base. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create a cube, and I'm going to keep this quite simple. So let's just grab this cube over here. And yeah, I'm going to do this like super dirty right now and just very quickly without even any snapping or anything. I just want to quickly create like a railing, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pretty much move it like this. So I basically just have like a cube, and then I will just duplicate it to the correct height later on. So let's go ahead and do the same thing over here. So if it would be on the floor, let's say that we have this one, what I can do is I can just quickly create another cube and set the y-axis to 0.65. No, is that correct? It might actually be correct because I'm looking at this in a really strange perspective. So yeah, that might actually be correct. I might just be making this way too thick, so I might just want to, let's say like tone this one down over here. And then pretty much just go ahead and maybe like have another one like this, and then have like a thicker one down here, just to kind of like give the most basic looking railing ever over here. Maybe move this up a little bit. There we go. That's honestly all I need for like a blockout. So I can add this to a new layer, call this railing _01 in case I need to make more variations. And all I need to do now is I just need to kind of like move this down here. And more in the center, because your pivot point will always stay at 0, 0, 0 when you export to Unreal. So we can just go ahead and we can export this railing _01 and export. And now if we go into Unreal, all we need to do is just do a super quick import over here. Should all be fine. Perfect. And now we can go ahead and we can use those over here. Just like that. Yeah, see, that looks fairly logical. So we got these ones over here. The snapping still works, so that should be fine. So I should be able to just use this. Maybe I want to snap it like a tiny bit higher for now. And then I can just go over here. Now, as you can see over here, this always becomes a little bit tricky. But what I tend to do is in these type of cases, I tend to just kind of like have them going inside of our pillars. And later on I want to do like a bit more precise placement, but for now I'm just going to do this. And honestly, it's just because it's easier to just very quickly place something like this compared to me doing like perfect scaling already, because I don't yet know what my railing is going to specifically look like. So it's not always good. Okay, I'm good. It's not always good to go super precise right away, because you might just end up wasting a lot of time that you will need to recorrect later on anyway. So over here, you can see me just doing this like quite quickly. I'm not too worried if stuff is like clipping into each other or anything like that. We have this one, and I don't want to do those yet. So what I can do is I can already quickly grab these, and I might change my lighting after I've done this so that it becomes a little bit easier to just view this, because I can see that I sometimes have a bit of trouble correctly like reading out if I'm already here. See, like this, it's really difficult to see where exactly the flooring is. So for that, it is as simple as going down here, and what we can do is we can first of all, I will clean this up later on. So we can first of all go here in our light, just this one, and simply go ahead and like play around with it. And often if you set it in like a little bit more shadow, it will look a little bit nicer. And another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Create, Visual Effects, and add a Post-Process Volume. We will need this later on, but for now, all you want to do is you want to scroll all the way down and turn on Infinite Extent, which means that it will just always, wherever you are in the level, it will use this post effect. And then if you go to Exposure, you want to tick on Exposure Compensation, Minimum and Maximum, and this is the stuff that when you look at it this and then you look away, that you can see that the lighting tries to adjust based upon where you're looking. However, I want to have full control, so I like to set this to 0 and 0, and then push my exposure compensation down. So now it doesn't matter where I am, it will always stick with this kind of exposure. Here you can see when I look at it from the inside, it's already starting to look a little bit more interesting. So we got these railings over here, that's all totally fine. And then when you have these pieces over here, this is mostly the reason why I was making these railings. Because of course you do not want to have people falling down from the escalator. So that's why the railings would be very vital here. So we can make a railing here. And then another one over here. And yeah, let's just leave it like this. I don't really care. And if we then make another one, I just need to have a quick look. So this one, oh nice. So it actually ends quite naturally at those ends. And then I can pretty much just grab these three. Keep duplicating them over here. And just keep switching this one around to the other side. And do it again. And then for those ones, this is a special case, this one over here. What I need to do is I just need to go ahead and give it like one tiny end down here. For which, for now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale this. Later on I'm going to use a really hacky technique where I will probably just boolean it out. So I will literally boolean a final model. Sorry, let's turn off scaling. So that I'm just going to cut it off. Because it will save me literally creating an entire new model. And I like to save time, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff, because I don't have a lot of time. But yeah, okay, so the railings are done. That's all pretty cool. Now let's get started and just decide where brain freeze. Where that we want to have our actual stores. That was way too difficult to say. So what I like to do, I already have like something in my mind. We cannot just push stores everywhere. If I literally go like, oh yeah, a store here, a store here, a store here, it doesn't make sense. Few reasons. One, it's a library. And although it is a mal converted to a library. And the second one is that it would be way too much work. So instead what I want to do is in these areas, I want to almost have like sections. So what we're going to have is we are going to have things like, for example, fiction section, non-fiction. Then over here you can go, for example, documentaries, life advice, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. And for example, kids. So something in that direction. So we will have basically one floor for every type of thing. It's almost like a clothing store where you have like the men's section, the women's section, the kids section, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to create the holes of where I want to have the entrance to those sections. So the way that you can imagine it is, and you need to keep doing this, you need to keep imagining like how would this work in real life. So the people come in here, Later on they will see like a really nice environment and everything, and they see like over here they see like restaurants, so you can like sit and eat and everything. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to read a book, and then you have like public places, so you have like some seatings here, and then you come in here and you basically walk in here, and here you, for example, have like completely filled with like fiction books, and it's just like a lot of stuff that you can browse around. And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna go up the escalator, and then over here we can, for example, have let's say around this area maybe over here, or I don't know, is 2 enough, or do we want to go 3? Yeah, over here we can go for like, okay, so here we have another one. And once you've done that, so you can walk up here, and then you can go up here and go to the restaurants. Or what you can do is you can go another floor, and you say, okay, so there's another topic over here. And for this topic, what I want to do is I probably want to go ahead and maybe make it like, I'm looking at my reference, by the way. Sometimes that's why I pass. I'm going to make this like a very large area. And let's make this one a small one. So these are just going to be like small stores, or they will have like a gap that you can go inside, and then it will become a little bit bigger. And then over here I just want to have like a very large area, and I'm going to make this like a lounge area. So stuff where people can sit, where people can use computers, that kind of stuff. I think that would be quite cool. And then over here at like the very top we will have just like a simple little store. 2. Yeah, that should be fine. So 2, a lot, 2. You know what? Let's do 3 after all. So there we go. So we basically have something like this. Now what I'm going to do is for the entrances, we might want to make those entrances sort of unique. However, for now what I will do is I will just make them as like a quick block out, which means that I'm going to go in my modeling tools and I'm going to create a very quick box. And we are going to be able to reuse this over and over and over again. So let's set the scale to 0.8 by 0.8. And this pillar over here, it's just basically to block out the transition, so that we can make like a nice looking transition. I'm going to go to poly edit, and I'm going to move this up until around this point over here. And then what I had in mind is to like give it almost like an insert. So I go, let's go into like my loop in and give it like an even insert, and then maybe also give it like a something down here, press accept. And then if we go back to our poly edit, we can extrude this out. See? So you get kind of like something like this over here. And yeah, that will work quite well. Yeah, I think that will work quite well. So we got this one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and maybe quickly give the gray material, duplicate it and rotate it 180, and then simply place it on the other side. So yeah, you can see that we can like make bigger entrances, and the bigger they are, the more pillars we will have in between. And right now, doing the whole stuff like merging and everything is not very handy to do inside of this program. So what I tend to do is I tend to just go ahead and kind of clip them in, select both of them, and then press append, which will basically turn them into one object. So if I press apply, you can see that now it is one object. So having this piece, if we would go ahead and duplicate it. Oh, my walls are slightly off. Not that that really matters, you won't be able to notice that, but I don't know, it's something if you want you can fix. But basically, let's go ahead and push this all the way up like this. And then here it just becomes another entrance. And then for this one, this is very important with your modeling tools. As I said, it's instant. So what you want to do is you want to press duplicate up here. And then simply press accept. And now it has become its own model. So now if I go up here and I select all of this stuff, I can simply push this further in like this. And then what I can do is I can go ahead and if I want, for example, place like another box over here. 0.8 by 0.8 by, what was it, 4.5? Oh no, 4. Over here, and then just kind of like make sure that it is on one line. And then it is as simple as just kind of like moving this in the center. Sometimes a bit difficult to see, But this is something that I will properly like measure out later on. But having this one, what we can do is we can just go ahead and we can also do an append on this. So now we have 2 types. This is a really large room. I want to have full access to that room, so I'm going to use this one, so that we do not have like any interruptions when you walk through this doorway. So here you can see that I'm just kind of like moving this over here. And now what I can do is I can go ahead and I can like push this back, press duplicate to turn it into its own model, poly edit, and then it's as simple as grabbing this. So these new modeling tools, they are super easy. They still need a lot of work, but they are actually really powerful. I'm only showing you like a fraction of it, but you can do a lot of stuff. It's just a little bit slower than, of course, doing it inside of, for example, Maya or something like that. And then I'm going to basically duplicate it one last time over here. And that's pretty much it. So my idea is that we have these pieces, and this one is like a little bit higher, so you know what, that might actually, will that cause problems? No, it will not cause problems, because I'm only using it on this store, so the only problem would be that this one would need to be slightly altered. But it will look nicer for our ceiling compared to having like a really thick piece over here. So it will look nicer for a ceiling, so I'm just gonna leave it like this. It might not make sense what I'm saying right now, but trust me, it will later on. Because I've made stuff like this before. Not this exact thing, but I've done, for like the Division, I've done like a lot of ceilings and stuff like that. So there we go. So we basically now got all of this stuff over here. And now pretty much what you want to do is you simply want to go in and decide how large you want these stores to be. So, for example, as you can see over here, you don't have to place this wall here. You can just go ahead and you can place it, for example, like... here, let's say that I place it over here. And I say, okay, I want this area to be quite thin. And then you can just map out whatever area you want. Now, in our case... most of these stores, I think I will only have like 1 or 2 stores that I will actually properly decorate. So these stores, they will just have like a bunch of bookcases, but I will on purpose not have any lights on, meaning that it will just look very dark when you look inside. I'm doing that for this one because it is the ground floor. It's not really a floor that you will notice. You would often just like want to make shots from like higher angles and everything like that. So with this one, what I can do is I can just keep it like a nice, small room over here. Like that. And then it's also just a matter of just grabbing your ceiling pieces. And we need to have these anyway because of this store. So we can pretty much just continue on. Here we go to like the point that you prefer. And then you simply want to go ahead and you want to place them here, which will give us a lot of depth. So yeah, you can definitely see, like, if you also want to make the outside, the transition works exactly the same as this, only you want to make it, of course, like a nice doorway transition. And then on the outside, you would just build your walls around this area to not merely show that it looks like this. So that's pretty much how you make a transition from inside to outside. You can also look on my YouTube if you want to have like a better look at how to make those transitions. But here you can see that it just looks very dark inside, and that's exactly what I want. So just like that, we can basically create this store, and we just need to go ahead and we need to continue on doing that. But this chapter is almost done, so let me just quickly do this one. And I'm going to make this one. Let's see, so let's do this to be like the kids section. Then over here we can do like probably like fiction or something like that. It doesn't really matter too much. Like, you want to have logical locations in it. But one thing you need to keep in mind is that I'm doing this for a tutorial. If you are doing this for a game, you can really go super detailed in the planning with like entire blueprints on like, okay, so where is the fiction? Why is it in that location? Is it... because often fiction will be close together with non-fiction and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that I will be doing is later on, I will just have like a simple text over here that just says like non-fiction books, for example, or something like that. And it will just be like a cool 3D text, as if that they just quickly place the text on to indicate where to find what. But this is something that you will see later on. This comes way later, when we are almost done, because those things are not very important to art. They are just like very small details. But yeah, as you can see over here, I'm just making this one like a little bit bigger. Like this. Double check that this does not happen where it accidentally clips in. And if it does, it is always better to clip towards the outside than towards the inside. And now it is just a matter of, once again, grabbing this one. And I can have maybe like some lights on. I will most likely need to have some lights on. Or what I can do is I can maybe like create like a ceiling light or anything like that. But that would not really make too much sense for a multi-story building, because they expect there to be another building up here. So if I want to have a ceiling light, it would need to be on like the top floor. I cannot just give the bottom floor a random ceiling light. The reason I say that is because of this stuff. See? Here where you can see like a nice ceiling light. It looks really cool. But we kind of like need to figure out where to actually use it, because we will most likely be getting most of our lighting from this roof over here. But as you can see, these two are now pretty much done. And what we will be doing is in the next chapter, we will just map out this one and this one. And yeah, then we will just go ahead and continue on with that.